Welcome, KidLit summer campers. If you've been to writing conferences, one of the first things that agents or publishers say that what they're looking for when they read your opening page of your manuscript is wants, desires, and stakes. But what does that really mean? Well, I'm here to help you out. It means that the main character yearns for something they don't have and will stop at absolutely nothing until they get the reward. Sounds pretty easy, right? It isn't. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, please allow me to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Rebecca of Rad Notes Book Coaching. I'm a certified book coach helping speculative fiction writers create unforgettable characters that keeps that reader turning the page. And to be clear, speculative fiction is the fun fiction. Think fantasy, magical realism, alternate history, dystopian, and my favorite, horror. Yes, kids like horror too. I coach both middle grade and young adult, and my passion is working with writers who appreciate the intricacies of characters and storytelling as a craft, as an art. There's something magical about witnessing a character come to life on the page, as well as transforming a reader's perception of those difficult characters. So now you know a little about me. Let's get back to those pesky wants and desires. As writers, you have the power to influence people. You have the power to change the world. No, I'm not joking. Characters mirror people, regardless if the characters are creatures in fantastical stories or cute little animals in children's books, villains or protagonists in a mystery. They all reflect the human experience. This means that characters are layered, they have deep wounds, and hide most of those broken emotions behind masks. Sound familiar? It is our job as good writers to rip off those masks, to peel back the layers and show our readers the vulnerability of our characters' traumas and misbeliefs. So when we learn to understand that the many facets of personality, we can transfer those feelings onto the page so readers feel empathy. Then maybe, just maybe, when they close that book, they can look at their family members, their friends at school, their parents, whatever, their friends, and then they can recognize that, yeah, we all do have a story. So now that I'm off my soapbox, let's get down into it. We're here to talk about wants, desires, and stakes. So if you've been to writing conferences, one of the first things that agents or publishers are looking for when they read the opening pages of manuscripts is stakes, desires, and wants. But what does that really mean? Well, this is a powerful trio. It's a concept that character yearns for something and they don't have it and will stop at nothing until they get that reward. So, we're going to dive deeper into those concepts using Katniss from the Hunger Games to help with our examples today. So, let's start with wants. So, a want is an external reward, it's surfaced. So, what you want to look at is who is your protagonist before the story starts, knowing who they are, where they came from. It plays a big role in the latter effect. What does she want? So, wants are specific, they're sometimes tangible and often achievable. Wants give the story direction and they create the backbone of the character's actions. Wants drive the plot forward and they are usually visible to other characters. So here's some examples of some perfect examples of wants to choose from. Of course, you can create your own. So money, like I want money. I want a home, maybe a new home, moving to a new town. I want a pony, maybe to win the big game, maybe to get into a relationship or help getting out of a relationship or getting over grief and maybe be happy again. Be creative, fill in the blank. So remember, we talked about using Katniss as an example. That was a pretty tough world that she lived in, right? So the opening scene is her shooting for food, trying to feed her family. So her want right off the bat that we absolutely know of is she wants to protect her family and avoid being used by the Capitol. That's a pretty decent want. Everybody wants it, everyone feels it, but it's surface, and we'll get to why in just a moment. So desires are more internal type of rewards. So the desire, it's an internal objective, something with deep emotional roots, and a lot of times it's not talked about. So this desire, it drives emotions. It leads to consequences. Desires are so deep rooted and so emotional. They have a psychological need behind the want. That's the key. So desires are abstract and they're internal. They're not necessarily fully understood on a conscious level by the character and can easily conflict with the protagonist's want. So here are some examples of desire: a yearning to to belong, a sense of belonging, protection for yourself, for others, wanting respect. Maybe you haven't got respect in your whole life, or you had it that one time and now it's so far away, and you're thinking about your characters here and really looking into why are they the way that they are. And these are deep rooted emotions. Maybe they need to be seen, or depending on the situation, maybe they need to escape. So again, you can fill in the blanks here. This is the starting points of understanding wants and desires. So in Katniss's case in the Hunger Games, here's an internal desire that you just don't talk about, especially in District 12. She wants safety and stability. And that is not as easy as it sounds in District 12, in the capital, in this fascist regime. So, what's at stake? Now that you have a basic idea of what your protagonist wants and desires, you'll need to start thinking about the consequences if your protagonist doesn't get her way. Okay, so let's look at the protagonist wants from step one, right? Again, we're going to use the Hunger Games and Katniss as an example. So protection is the want, but it's deeper than that. Her world is a harsh and difficult living environment, to say the least. And and we know this right from the start, right? So at the beginning of the book starts off with Katniss and Gale. We've talked about this, talking about escaping District 12. But Katniss hesitates. Why? Because she feels that need to protect her sister and her mother. If she's not there to protect them, that want is already blown off, right? It's not part of the story any longer. So, but she has this conflict of, how am I going to tell Gale that no, I can't do this? Well, in the meantime, of course, Katniss now volunteers to protect her younger sister from the harsh reality of facing death in the game. It's designed, this game is designed by the government, and it's to help ensure that the citizens in every region must obey. So survival is a necessity. So Katniss can go back home, she can protect her family, and just live her life in this grim reality called life, right? But in order for Katniss to protect her family, she must survive the games. So this is the stake. Without surviving, the book is over, and all of her friends and her family are in the same situation they were before they left, but they're sadder because Katniss is dead, right? So let's think of 3 obstacles when the book begins of what could get in her way of survival and protecting her family. So in the Hunger Games situation, these examples would be other players are obstacles from her getting her desired want. The game warden, remember, they would always change it up if she was doing too well. And President Snow, the true antagonist of the whole organization. So it's your turn now. Think about what your protagonist wants. Think about their desires. And this is all preliminary, but this is starting to get your brain juices going about how you're going to present this character to kids. So name 3 obstacles that might get in your character's way in receiving what they want as a want or desire. I want to reiterate, the constant state of tension revolves around the possibility of death, right? So Katniss's stakes are death. In other books, it could be it's not literal death. Maybe it's like a death of an emotional death. That think about high school, or that you did the wrong thing and now you're going to get pummeled by your friends or on social media for doing that in your books. So that is a different kind of death. But in the Hunger Games, Katniss's death is literal, right? So what you want to do is you're going to start making preliminary choices about what those stakes are, the consequences of not getting what your character wants and desires. That's going to get everything moving. Now let's put it all together. So we're going to put everything in that we just talked about together and say that Katniss's world is harsh. We talked about this. It's a difficult living environment. And we know this right from the start. So in the beginning, the book starts off with Katniss and Gale wanting to escape. But Katniss hesitates because she has to protect her sister and mother. So she volunteers for the games to do just that. But underneath that tough exterior of just wanting to protect her family, what she truly desires is just to live in a world where survival isn't a constant thought, a constant threat. She doesn't want to be burdened with responsibility anymore. And she doesn't want to be the shield for her family. So in order for Katniss to protect her family, she must survive the games. The stakes are what she stands to lose, or what her family stands to lose. So without surviving the games, the book is over. Katniss dies. We just talked about that, right? So Prim and her mother's situation would worsen. And then the Capitol would continue to do what it's been doing the whole time. Boring book. So we got to have those stakes in there. Hopefully this gave you a little bit better understanding of how wants, desires, and stakes play a major role in the first few pages of your story. If you're wild and crazy, go for the first page. So as I mentioned earlier, I help writers build characters with multiple layers that keeps the reader turning the page. If you're interested in joining me for my August group coaching program called Writing Characters with Soul, which we cover all of this on just week 1, I've put a link in the comments for you to sign up for my free newsletter, which of course will give you updates on all the upcoming programs as well as speculative fiction writing tips. Thank you for joining me today. Enjoy your next 24 hours.